Well, greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the John Campea Show here on my YouTube channel on this glorious Sunday. We do it, of course, on the weekends at 9 a.m. so we can have our time to still get this show in and then go watch some football. Of course, I'm your host, John Campea, and thank you guys for being here with us today to talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and TV and all that other kind of good stuff as well. And I'm so glad that you guys have joined in today so we can talk about all this great stuff. Now, I'm going to give you a little bit of a programming update for today on my YouTube channel. Right now, obviously, we got the John Campea Show at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is the Star Wars The Last Jedi open spoiler review and discussion, where I'm going to give my spoiler review, talk about all the finer points, take your comments and input and questions, and go into all sorts of deep stuff. That's going to be at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time. That's 3 p.m. East Coast time. And then around 4 p.m., I'm going to have a special video going up. It's not going to be live, but I'm going to have a special video going up called The 3 Reasons Why Star Wars The Last Jedi Will Drop 60% or More on its second weekend. I mean, we'll get into that a little bit later in the show. For now, it's time for us to get things started. Now, I have picked out 5 topics that you guys have submitted into me. Now, how do you get a topic or a question on the John Campea Show? It's really quite simple. You simply email me anytime at john@thejohncampeashow.com. That's john@thejohncampeashow.com. Send on in your questions there. Remember, guys, very important, put the word topic in the subject line. And of course, as always, keep it to 90 words or less, or else I wouldn't even be able to fit it on the screen even if I wanted to. Now, after that, once we get into the second half of the show, I'm going to be taking your questions and comments live. 2 ways to get those things on. Number 1, the primary way is to use the super chats. And then if we still have time by the end of the show, I'm then going to go to Twitter. I'll let you know if we're going to have time for that, and I will give you instructions to do so. So, with all that out of the way, let's get things started. And the first question today comes to us from Anthony P. And Anthony P. writes, "Hey, John, I feel like it was pretty recent Fox announced the Multiple Man movie. Between this, Gambit, and anything Fox had listed recently as an upcoming project, why do you think they've invested resources into getting these films in development when they knew they were selling it all off? Surely, if we found out this week about the deal being closed, Fox had to anticipate this for some time." All right, thanks a lot for the question, Anthony. And you're not the only one who's been sending in that thought, that question to me as well. It's like, well, wait a minute. Why did they announce Multiple Man? First of all, they didn't really, if I'm not mistaken, they didn't announce Multiple Man. I think one of the major trades found out about it and reported it. So keep that in mind as well. But you know what? Why do they have all these movies in motion if they just knew they were going to sell? For a very, very important reason. When you think you're going to be selling, you keep going on business as usual. You keep going. There's a lot of people in Fox that it's their jobs to get movies up and going. They're supposed to just keep doing their jobs because you never know. Fox is interested in selling. Great. Maybe they won't sell. Maybe it'll take them a year to get all the details in place. Maybe they'll get 4 or 5 people that get in line to make pitches, and it's going to take a 3, 4, 6 month process to get all that done. Whatever the case may be, just because you think you're going to sell your company doesn't mean you just stop what you're doing. You have to keep things going as normal. I remember back when I was working at AMC, and AMC was about to get bought by this giant Chinese company called Wanda. None of us had any idea what was going to happen. We didn't know. We heard that Wanda and AMC were in talks for Wanda to buy up the company. We knew that was happening, but we didn't know for sure 100% if the deal was going to go through. And we didn't know that if the deal does go through, what does that mean? What things will change? Which things will stay the same once the deal goes through, if it goes through? We just never knew. So the main instruction that came down to us from the top was, keep going business as usual. Until this whole thing is settled, keep going business as usual. Now, as it turns out in the AMC situation, Wanda bought the company and decided to change nothing. Actually, they saw what a great success AMC Movie News was, and they gave us a little bit of a bigger budget, which was great, so I like that. But for the most part, nothing changed, which was totally happened. So from Fox, it's like, number one, we don't know 100% that we're going to be able to sell. Number two, if we are going to be able to sell, we don't know who we're going to sell it to. Number three, we don't know if we're going to sell it to somebody, how long is that process going to take? Number four, if everything goes through, we don't know which things they're going to want to keep the same and which things they're going to want to change. So when you're in a situation like that, for the most part, you just keep going business as usual, and then you let whatever happens happen after that. That seems to be the situation, the way it was handled in a circumstance I was in that was similar to this. I can only assume that's the way Fox was looking at it as well. At least that's the way I think. Now, who knows? We might get some behind-the-scenes stories come out over the next year or two to find out it was actually a totally different story. But for now, that's what I kind of think what happened. Thanks a lot for the question. All right, we move on now to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from one of my Patreon supporters, Jorge G. Gallardo, who writes, how is the Disney/Fox deal acquisition and the FCC ruling against net neutrality related? Can this net neutrality ruling affect Disney and its upcoming streaming service in a positive or negative way? Well, thanks a lot for the question. And it is kind of funny how many net neutrality questions have been getting emailed into me, even though we are primarily a movie news show. But this does relate. These are connected here. Here's how net neutrality and the removal of it could affect, like, for instance, Disney and its upcoming streaming service, okay? Understand the basic tenets of net neutrality. Number one, it basically, what the net neutrality rules basically laid out was that you cannot, if you're an internet service provider, throttle one site in favor of another or charge certain people extra money to be able to access that site and blah, blah, blah. The internet needs to be open and available and fair to everybody. It needs to be a level playing field. So what they did was the internet service provider paid hundreds of millions of dollars in lobbyists to influence government officials to get rid of those rules so they can take advantage of you and I, the customers. And they succeeded. Congratulations, they succeeded. So they were able to do that, and they're going to be able to screw everybody over as much as they want now. The basic way that this is really going to be able to affect something like a Disney streaming service, here's an example of how this could affect Disney. I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but this is now what's open and available to happen. Disney is going to have its own streaming service, right? Okay, great. One of Disney's competitors is Comcast, which owns Universal Studios, right? Comcast. Guess what else Comcast owns? A big major internet service providing company. I believe Xfinity is the name of the company that they own. So what Xfinity could now do when Disney launches its streaming service, Xfinity could say, oh, for all of our internet customers, we're going to throttle down access to the Disney streaming service to a really slow speed. But we'll make access to another streaming service that we own super fast. Now, you might be screaming at your computer screen saying, they can't do that. Yes, now they can. Net neutrality were rules that were in place to make sure that that couldn't happen. That is something that could happen now. That's something, or what Infinity could do is say to their own customers, hey guys, access to that Disney streaming service is an extra $5 a month on your internet bill. Or the other thing they could do is go to Disney and say, hey, Disney, if you want our customers to be able to access your site, you have to pay us $100 million a year or something like that. These are things that are now open and fair game. Now, you might say, well, John, then why not just switch internet service companies? If your internet service company does that, just drop them. That's what the open market's all about. Yeah, but there's a problem with that. Not every internet service provider is available to you. Internet service providers have monopolies on various regions. For example, where I live in frickin' Los Angeles. I'm in Burbank, California. I only have one option for an internet service company, and that's Spectrum. That's it. I have no other options for high-speed internet. There's a couple of like older DSL kind of things I could go with, I suppose, but I don't have access to Fios. I don't have access to Time Warner. I don't have access to a bunch of other of the major internet service providers. I don't even have the option for that. And wherever you live, you have limited options too. So these companies now have a total monopoly over their territories. They're like mobsters over their territories, and they can do whatever the hell they want to you, and you really don't have much choice. So anyway, that is the way it could affect the upcoming Disney streaming service, is if some of Disney's competitors own internet service providers, they could throttle down speeds to their service, and it could get ugly. I still believe this will not stand. A bunch of states have already announced that they're going to be launching lawsuits to reinstate net neutrality laws. Also, if that doesn't work, we just have to wait till a new government administration comes in. The new government administration will come in eventually, and when they do, they will reinstate net neutrality laws, because they are net neutrality is an essential service to the population. It's like water. It's like electricity. It is an essential service in today's day and age. It is how we learn, communicate. It's everything now. And you can't let companies like this become monopolies and just gouge people like this. And it will affect us as movie fans as well. So this is all stuff we got to keep our eyes on. All right, let's move on now to the next question. I ranted on that for long enough. Sorry about that. Next question comes to us from Richard Myers. And Richard Myers writes, "Hey, John. So a lot of people are talking about the mid-season finale of The Walking Dead. Unfortunately, one of the main things they're talking about is that the ratings being in a free fall. This was the lowest rated mid-season finale since the show started. How much longer does this show have?" All right, thanks a lot for the question, Richard Myers. And yeah, a lot of people have been talking about Walking Dead. I have never been a major Walking Dead fan. Actually, I didn't really like... After the end of Season 1, I kind of gave up on it because I hated the season finale of Season 1. But I kind of got back on board with it. Never loved the show, but I've watched it. And I wasn't watching this season. And then one Sunday, Anne was gone. She was out of the house. So I had a few hours to kill. So I kind of binge-watched this season and got caught up. And it's all right. I don't think it's bad. I know some people hate it. Fine. I don't think it's that bad. And I love the Negan character. I love the Negan character. Not necessarily everything they do with the character, but I love the character. Anyway, the ratings have been in a free fall. Now, it is still a lot of people watch this show. I think like 7.5 million people watch the mid-season finale. That's a lot of people. It's no longer the juggernaut. It's no longer the king of the hill kind of numbers, but it's still a big number. These are numbers that you still want for a show to have. I mean, they're good numbers, but they are nowhere near what they used to be. And it does seem like the ratings for the show keeps dropping. As a matter of fact, Ann and I were out having dinner with a buddy of mine last night, Ryan. And Ryan was saying, "Oh yeah, I gave up on Walking Dead." He used to love Walking Dead. But we're sitting there having dinner. He goes, "Oh, yeah, I gave up on Walking Dead. I'm not going to watch it anymore." I'm like, wow. And then I found out my brother-in-law, Ray, and Ann's brother, Ray. It's like Ray isn't going to watch it anymore either. I'm like, really? Because Ryan and Ray used to watch it together. I'm like, really? And I'm talking to more and more people who are saying they're giving up on the show. Again, I've never loved this show, but I think it's decent enough. My only theory, and I could be 100% wrong about this, is that the show has just always kind of felt the same from season 1 till now, and maybe people are just over it. Maybe it was great and had its run, and now people are done with it. And they will always look back on and remember Walking Dead fondly as a great show, but maybe just, I don't know. I might be totally wrong about that. I have no idea. I am not tuned in to the Walking Dead verse as it is, but it does seem, I'll say this. The numbers are still good for most shows, but if it continues the free fall in its ratings, then maybe you'll see one more season. If next season comes out, with 7.5 million viewers for a mid-season finale, I think it's pretty much guaranteed another season. But if next season comes and it's like 6 million viewers, 5.5 million viewers, stuff like that, at that point, I think they're probably going to look at pulling the plug on it. And it's had a great run. It's lasted a lot longer than most shows do, so kudos to Walking Dead. All right, let's move on to the next question. And the next question today comes to us from Connor Diaz. And Connor Diaz writes, "Hey, John, I absolutely love you and your videos." Thank you so much, Connor. "I practice my English by watching your videos every day. I don't know how smart that is because my English ain't so good. But anyway. Edge of Tomorrow / Live, Die, Repeat is one of my favorite films. And I was wondering if there was any news about the sequel. Last I heard, Cruise pitched an idea that was liked, and it was centered around Emily Blunt's character. I think it was going to be sort of a spin-off movie. However, I haven't heard anything since. Thoughts?" All right, thanks a lot for the question. And look, Edge of Tomorrow is one of the poster child examples of a horribly marketed movie. Just horribly marketed movie. One of the worst marketed movies ever. You could do a marketing class on what not to do with Edge of Tomorrow. First of all, it is a dumbass title. It sounds like a bad soap opera title. Edge of Tomorrow, come back and find out if Lily will sleep with her cousin's third brother. La la la. That's what Edge of Tomorrow sounds like. It's a stupid title, especially when it had such an awesome title in All You Need Is Kill. That is such an awesome title. And if you didn't want to use All You Need Is Kill, fine. Come up with something else other than Edge of Tomorrow. It was a stupid title. Didn't really connect to the story at all. Anyway. And then the trailers were like just awful. They look like some kind of abstract art concept metaphysical movie. Remember the bad music? This is not the end. It was just like stupid. It was just dumb. And then the movie comes out and the movie's awesome. I love this movie. Edge of Tomorrow is freaking awesome. And it's like, we're watching, it's like, what? Why didn't they market this movie? Because this movie kicks ass. Why did they not market this movie? And that's what a lot of us were asking at the time. So it was a terrific movie. Anyway, moving on now. Talking about a possible sequel. There has been a lot of talk. They say they're doing it and all this kind of stuff. Now, the last thing that I heard was back in October. So just a couple of months ago. So the last thing that I heard of any official note was that the director was talking and he was being interviewed, and he basically said that him and Tom and Emily were all talking and they're all excited about the movie, but the big issue right now is working out a schedule because Emily is in high demand right now. Tom Cruise is always in high demand. And even the director, Doug, he's in high demand. He's always in high demand. So, especially lately. So, he was talking about how they want to get this movie going. They got a lot of things they want to do, but it's just a matter of working out the timing right now and making sure they can get everything done that they want to get done and to actually do the movie. So, that is the last thing I heard. I wouldn't expect a sequel to Live, Die, Repeat / All You Need Is Kill Tomorrow, Forever, Never Die. I don't expect we're going to see the sequel to that until at least 2020. I think at the earliest this movie will hit theaters is late 2020. Probably closer to like 2021. But I'm looking forward to it. You guys are looking forward to it. Let's see when it actually comes out and tickles off fancy, as it were. All right, let's move on to the final emailed in question today. And the final email question today comes to us from Sarah Wellstood, who writes, so they're saying Star Wars The Last Jedi is going to become the second largest opening weekend in film history, around $215 million mark. This is more than Avengers, Jurassic World, or any other movie other than The Force Awakens. What does it say about the importance of this franchise, considering it's been around 40 years and still making this kind of money? Well, thanks a lot for the question, Sarah. And again, a little bit later today, once again at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time today, I'm going to be doing my open Star Wars spoiler discussion and review. So make sure you guys come back for that. But as far as like, what does it say about the importance of this franchise? That this franchise that is now 40 years old can still come out and absolutely crush and dominate the box office and be like the most anticipated film of the year, and more people rush out to see this movie than any other movie and all that kind of stuff. What does that say about the importance of a franchise 40 years old and still doing this sort of thing? Not to mention coming off of, you know, what I call the dark ages of the prequels and all that kind of stuff. What does it say about a franchise like that? Look, you cannot, there are some people out there, and I don't mind if you like or dislike Star Wars. That's fine. Like, all film is subjective. I applaud it if you don't like Star Wars. I applaud it if you love the prequels. That's fine. It's all subjective. We're all film fans. That's great. However, what I take exception with is whenever I hear somebody try to say, Star Wars is overrated. If you ever hear somebody who says Star Wars is overrated, I will show you somebody who has no understanding of film or film history or pop culture or the importance of the role that this franchise has played in the development of all of it. It's okay if you don't like Star Wars. That's fine. You and I can still go out and have a beer. I'll have a Diet Coke because I don't drink beer. But you and I can still go out and have a drink, hang out, talk movies, discuss, debate, and all. That's great. Nothing wrong with that. You can say you don't like it. That's great. Nothing wrong. But to say it's overrated, is fundamentally and factually incorrect. When you look at the influence, no other film in history, here's a great example. I go to this all the time. Avatar, for example, right? #1 box office movie worldwide, and not domestically, but worldwide of all time. But it had no staying power. I remember, like, and you've heard me talk about this before, you know, the first Halloween after Avatar came out in theaters, I saw a whole bunch of Avatar costumes because it became ingrained in the pop culture, right? The second Halloween after it, though, I saw none. And I don't think I've seen anybody or any kids or any, like even at Las Vegas New Year's parties where it's adults, I haven't seen anybody wearing Avatar costumes because it was a big hit, but ultimately it disappeared from the pop culture consciousness. You'll still see people wearing, for instance, Heath Ledger's Joker costumes because it became, not only was it great, but it became ingrained in the pop culture consciousness. And so you still see lots of Heath Ledger Jokers and lots of this, lots of that, but you always see Star Wars costumes, whether it's kids on Halloween night or Las Vegas adult parties or whatever. It's because no film franchise in history has been ingrained itself so much and been as embraced and beloved by the collective pop culture consciousness as Star Wars has. You talk to the biggest filmmakers, especially the younger ones today that are like 40 or under, talking about what the biggest influence is. Star Wars, Star Wars, Star Wars. They'll list other films too, but Star Wars is always in that discussion. To say Star Wars is overrated and that's fine. If you want to say one particular movie, like for instance, Rogue One, I think that particular movie was overrated. I didn't like it that much. Totally fair. That's fine to say. Nothing wrong with that. That's great. You and I we have no beef over that. But to say that the property, the brand, the IP, the movement of Star Wars is overrated just kind of tells me you don't know anything about pop culture, film history, or anything when it comes to stuff like that. This isn't a subjective question like do you like a movie or not? That's all subjective. The importance of the role that Star Wars has played in film history and the formation of our pop culture itself cannot be disputed. It just can't be. Unless you just want to be a troll or blindly stick your head in the sand and pretend like the sky is purple. And it's cool if you don't like, again, I'm not talking about whether you should like the movies or not. That's a totally different question. But to deny the relevance of this franchise is nutty. And you know, there's a lot of things this franchise has done that I hate. The prequels, the Clone Wars stuff, even some of the episodes or some of the seasons of Rebels, which generally I like Rebels, but there have been seasons of Rebels that I just give up on it and walked away from them. So there's a lot to criticize about the Star Wars franchise, sure. But to say the franchise itself is overrated, that's a ridiculous statement. Completely ridiculous statement. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on it. Leave your thoughts in the comment section below. All right, guys, we've come to that part of the show now for the live questions. If you guys have a live question, now's your time to do it again. The main way to do it is to use the super chats. If we still have time after all the super chats are read, I'm going to go over to Twitter and take your tweets. But before we get to that, it is that part of the show for me to do my 1-minute commercial break where I admittedly, shamelessly plug my Patreon campaign, which is the main thing that keeps the lights on around here. So I will be back in 1 minute. Check out this one shameless plug. For those of you who have followed me for any period of time, you guys know that I made the decision recently to leave the corporate overlords. I no longer wanted to work for corporations. I wanted to be an independent content creator. And the only way I've been able to do that is by the support of my Patreon supporters. So what I would like to do is to ask you guys who watch my shows, who spend any amount of time with me every single month, to consider going over to www.patreon.com/John Campea. There you'll get all the information about what exactly does it mean to be a Patreon supporter of mine? What does being a Patreon supporter do for helping to make sure that shows like this one and all the other shows I do here on my channel can actually be produced? And on top of that, what benefits are there to being a Patreon supporter? And maybe if you guys can check that out, if you decide you want to be one of my Patreon supporters, that would be awesome. And if you don't, that's perfectly fine too. I'm just happy that you guys have decided to be here today and be a fellow movie fan and join us in the conversation. So go and check out the website, see if you want to become a Patreon supporter. And now let's get back. All right, guys, and a special thank you to all of you who out there who are already Patreon supporters. Thank you so much. You guys are the reason this show is even possible. Again, make sure you check out some of the benefits we do. Audio-only versions of the podcasts, including the John Campea Show, Star Wars Talk Tuesdays, the Weekly Hero on Fridays. Those we provide audio-only podcasts for people who like to just listen to their audio podcasts. We do Monday through Friday, with some exceptions, but most of the times Monday through Friday, we do a quick after show after the live John Campea Show on the Facebook group where we can get a little more deeper into stuff like that. Anyway, check that out. And if it's for you, awesome. And if it's not for you, no problem at all. I'm just happy you're a fellow film fan joining us here for the discussion. All right, with all of that out of the way, let's move over to the live questions. And the first live question we're taking today comes to us from Anthony R. And Anthony R. writes, when are you and Anne having little Campea? You need a Padawan. Anne and I are going to probably start having kids when we're ready to move to Canada. Because when we have kids, that's when we're going to move to Canada, because I've always just wanted to raise my kids in Canada. So when we're ready to move, that's when we're going to start having kids. So, but thank you so much for the deeply personal but totally understandable question. I appreciate you being interested. All right, the next one comes to us from Stig100-900 writes, Greatest Showman in 3 days away, review embargo date? I'm not sure about the review embargo date. There was a screening of it last week that I couldn't go to. So I'm not sure. I'm probably just going to end up seeing it on Tuesday night. But it is psychotic how excited I am for the Greatest Showman. I cannot wait. I have been listening. You guys have been hearing me say this. I've been listening to that damn soundtrack over and over and over. Every time Ann and I are in the car, that's all we do. We pop on the Greatest Showman soundtrack. It's unbelievable. I cannot wait for this movie. And I will review it as soon as I possibly can. But other than that, I'm not aware of when a review embargo date is, to be honest with you. All right, next question comes to us from the Kosan, who writes, over or under $1.8 billion worldwide for The Last Jedi? Oh, 1.8? Ooh. I'll take the under on that. I mean, 1.8, that's a stupid high number. I'll take the under on that. Remember, I have always said that, I've been saying this all year, The Last Jedi will not catch like the numbers that Star Wars The Force Awakens did. There's just too many special circumstances that surrounded The Force Awakens. I said it won't catch it overall, and it won't catch its opening weekend box office. So there's that. So 1.8, I mean, that's only 200 million away from The Force Awakens. So I'll take the under. I will take the under on that. Plum Pitful writes, if Han Solo gets pushed to next December, does Aquaman move? I don't think so. I don't think so. And you know what? I have been saying, okay, keep this to yourselves as I say it publicly. I have been saying that Han Solo will not move. I've been saying that for a long time. It won't move. I'm hearing it might now. So we'll find out here soon enough. I mean, they have to make if they haven't already made a final decision, they've got to make a final decision really soon. But I have been saying all along that Han Solo will not move off of its date. This week, I heard from somebody, a little bird, that might happen. They might actually move it. I didn't hear that if they move it, they'd move it to December. That seems to make sense, but I didn't hear that specifically. I just heard they might move the date. That's all I've heard. Where it would move, if it moved, what the chances are of it moving. I don't know if it's a 2% chance or a 90% chance. I have no idea. But again, I've been saying this whole time, it won't move. It will not move. And I have to confess that I've now heard that there is a chance it might move. So once I have anything else, I'll let you know if I hear anything more definitive. Thanks a lot for the question, man. Siobhan Dixit writes, what's better, Marvel Phase 1 or Phase 2? I think the Marvel stuff just keeps getting better and better, to be honest with you. You know, it has a few hiccups here and there. You know, Iron Man 2, Thor, The Dark World. I mean, so it has a few hiccups, absolutely. So I'm going to go Phase 2. I'm going to go with Phase 2 myself. Avelar writes, hey, John, thanks for that cutting the cord advice before. Oh, you are welcome. I'm glad more and more people are becoming cord cutters. Now, as the NFL regular season near its end, what do you think of the playoff picture? It's kind of shaping up, other than the Jaguars. I mean, who saw the Jaguars coming, right? I certainly wouldn't have pictured them being in the position that they're in right now. They're the big surprise. Obviously, the New England Patriots are the top of the division. They expected. Steelers are up there, totally expected. Seattle being on the outside looking in is a little bit of a surprise to me right now. I think when it's all said and done, they will get into the playoff picture and make a push. But it's shaping up pretty exciting. Big Monday night game tomorrow night, man. Pittsburgh and my Patriots. Big game. Gronk is going to be back. I'm very excited. You guys know I love the NFL. Let's see. Almost as much as I love hockey or the UFC. Let's see. By the way, did you see that UFC fight? How good was that fight? Dos Anjos looked way better against Robbie Lawler than I thought. I honestly thought Robbie Lawler would go in there and bully him because he didn't look. Dos Anjos was not looking great at lightweight anymore, and he has done real well in welterweight, and he looked great the other night. Anyway, Xavier Gomez writes, been a Walking Dead fan since day one, but it's time to end. Not because of the ratings, but because the writing has taken a heavy hit this season. It's just tough. Like, you're a show that runs for 8 seasons. You start to run out of things to do. And I don't know that the writing's gotten bad. It's just that where do you go? I mean, the premise of the show only allows you so much leeway, right? I mean, to a degree. So maybe it's just time. Maybe you're right, Xavier. Maybe it's just time. And I'm not saying it is. I'm just proposing that maybe 8 years is a long run for a show, man. That is a long run for a show. So maybe it is just time. Thanks for the question. All right, the next question comes to us from, I lost the question because all of a sudden a whole bunch more came in, from Jordan Cruz. And Jordan Cruz writes, the Fox deal is done. Do you think a Dragon Ball movie could happen? Fox had the rights for Dragon Ball Evolution. Also, shout out to my brother Regan. Well, shout out to you, brother Regan. Somebody asked us the other day. I'll tell you the same thing I said before. I don't see why Disney would make a Dragon Ball Z movie. Somebody else made a Dragon Ball Z movie before, and nobody went to go watch it. I think people overestimate how much the general movie-going audience would care about it. I mean, look, they've done other things like that. Airbender didn't do so well. Of course, it was crap. The Dragon Ball Z movie didn't do well. Of course, it was crap. But nobody knew they were crap until they went out to see it on opening weekend. And they didn't go see it opening weekend. So I don't see why Disney would want to make a big investment into a property that hasn't shown it can be profitable. And I remember all the arguments. Like, it's the same arguments I hear about Dragon Ball Z that I heard about Power Rangers. When Power Rangers was coming, I said, look, this is not going to do well at the box office. I ended up liking the movie, which totally shocked me. I like the Power Rangers movie, but I said forever, this is not going to do well at the box office. People overestimate how much the general movie going is. And everybody told me, John, you are clueless. You have no idea how huge the worldwide audience and fandom is for Power Rangers. It's going to be a smash hit, blah, blah, blah. What happened? Movie came out. It was actually pretty good. So I actually ended up starting cheering for the movie, but it made nothing. It whiffed at the box office. And I'm telling you, I think the same thing's going to happen. If they ever try another Dragon Ball Z movie, I think the same thing will happen. Now, maybe it'll change. You put a Peter Jackson directing it and you get what, maybe something then changes. But, and I'm not, by the way, I am not dissing on Dragon Ball Z whatsoever. Not at all. All I'm saying is that from the facts we have in front of us and the precedent we have in front of us and the numbers we have in front of us, I just don't know that Disney would want to take that kind of a risk. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm 100% wrong. I hope I'm wrong for those of you who are really love that property and want to see it on the big screen again. Maybe you can. If you're asking me if I think it will, I don't think it will. At least not in the next 5 to 10 years. All right, Siobhan Dixon writes in, why did they go with Cyborg as the 6th member of Justice League? Having Cyborg but not Green Lantern seems odd in my opinion. Cyborg primarily belongs in Teen Titans First. Stink of the 2011 Green Lantern, I wonder. Well, I think there's a couple of reasons they went with Cyborg. And I'll be honest with you. While Cyborg is not my favorite character, having Cyborg in there made sense. For a couple of reasons. Number one, you're right. The stench of the Green Lantern. The movie, the 2011 movie. A lot of people, that was a big turnoff. I think they wanted to stay away from that, get people back into the idea of a Green Lantern, and then introduce them later. I think that was their plan. Secondly, when you watch a lot of the animated Justice League stuff, Cyborg is a part of the Justice League. Not to mention, like, it's a really good idea. If you can diversify your cast a little bit, and Cyborg offers that opportunity, all other things being equal, why not? Why not do it? So I think having Cyborg as the character was the right decision on several levels. Plus, it allowed us to get introduced to the actor Ray Fisher, who is, I believe, a tremendous talent. Again, he comes from Broadway. He has a great acting pedigree, and I thought he did really well playing that role. So I totally see the logic on several levels for having Cyborg being there as the character. Now, whether or not the movie worked, that's up to you. It worked for me. I know it didn't work for a lot of you. That's fine, but I thought it was a good idea to have Cyborg in the movie. All right. Stig109 writes, why do you think The Gifted dropped in ratings? Well, I think a lot of shows start big and then trickle. Here's what I always tell. I always had the same philosophy when I was at AMC as well. I would tell my people, look, when we launch a new show, it'll have big numbers to launch, and then those numbers will fall, and then they'll steady out. It's that steady out number that becomes our number that we evaluate. It'll start here, it'll drop, and then it'll steady out. The question is, what number is it steadying out at? Because that steady out number is where we build from. Okay? I believe the same is true with a lot of TV. Like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. had this huge opening number, and then the ratings dropped. Some shows don't do that. Some shows have big openings and they keep getting bigger. That's fine too. But I think when you're launching a new show, initial interest there, boom. Some people drop off, but that level off number, that's your number. So I'm not concerned. I really like The Gifted. I think The Gifted's a really good show, which is shocking for me because I thought it looked like a throwaway show when they started marketing it at Comic-Con a few years ago. I thought it looked kind of dumb, but lo and behold, here we are. And I'm actually liking it. All right. Let's go at this one. Another one from Shivam Dixit. And Shivam writes, what has been your favorite hero versus hero battle in the MCU so far? Captain versus Iron Man, Hulk versus Hulkbuster, or Thor versus Hulk? I'm going to go Cap versus Iron Man. That was my favorite. The Hulkbuster one, see, that one was a kind of a... It's not really a fair fight because the Hulk was under mind control, then he gets distracted, and you never got to see the end of the... Obviously, Hulk wins that fight, but he gets distracted, and so you never really know who wins the fight. And it's because it was tainted. That fight was tainted. Thor versus Hulk was also a little bit tainted, because who knows how that fight would have ended up. Like, Hulk or Thor, obviously powers out, and then Hulk smashes him down. How would that fight have gone? If Thor stayed powered up and Hulk kept going at him, how would that fight have worked out? Not sure. With the Cap, the thing that I love about that Cap Iron Man fight, there was so much legitimate drama in the fight. Like with Thor Hulk fight, that's a great fight to watch, but there's not dramatic purpose in the fight other than they've come together and now they're going to fight, and that's great, and that works. Hulk versus Hulkbuster did have dramatic purpose, but not as deep. The whole movie of Captain America Civil War led up to that fight between Cap and Iron Man. The whole movie was about leading up to that fight. And so when that fight happened, it had all the drama, all the tension, all the anger, all the pain, all the conflict, all of that, all banging out at once. And it turned out into, it was a great fight. And I also, because, my favorite guy is Captain America. So I was really happy to see Captain America win the fight. But that's my favorite to me. I know a lot of you guys will have different opinions. That's great too. Which do you think was the best hero versus hero fight in the MCU so far? Jump down into the comments section. By the way, you got to add Batman versus Superman to that. I know there's a lot of differing opinion on it, but I think the Batman-Superman fight in Batman versus Superman was everything I wanted it to be. That fight was, and I know that's DC, but that fight was everything I wanted that fight to be and more. And I loved that they didn't wuss out and have the fight be a draw. They actually had a winner. I never would have thought they would have said that fight had a definitive winner, and it was Batman. Who would have thought they would do that? I thought for sure they were going to wuss out and call it a draw. Batman wins the fight, and I love that because I love those two characters. Anyway. Let's move on here. Spencer Clark writes, are you a Sopranos fan and have you ever tried Gabagool? I watched the first 3 seasons of Sopranos and then I fell off after that. Not because I didn't like the show. I was just, I think I was doing movie blog at the time. I was just busy. I didn't have a lot of time for TV and I just never got around to watching Sopranos after season 3. I love the first 3 seasons. I have never tried Gabagool, though. That I can say I've never tried. But look, again, whenever you hear serious discussions about greatest TV shows of all times, very often, more often than not, if it's a top 10 discussion, you'll often hear Sopranos in that discussion, and rightfully so. At least based on the first 3 seasons. I didn't see the ending. I know it had a very controversial ending with the black screen and all that kind of stuff, but I like the show. I just never got past season 3 for whatever reason. I'll probably binge it sometime and get caught up. Let's see. Inferno writes, do you think the MCU will go with an old or young X-Men? Well, again, that kind of question assumes whether or not they're going to reboot the X-Men, and we don't know that. I mean, I think the smart money is on Marvel rebooting the X-Men, but it's possible they just bring over what they've got. I mean, obviously, I think they're definitely going to bring over Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, because that's not really connected into their continuity anyway. Continuity, schmontinuity. But I've got to make a t-shirt with that. I had somebody suggest to me that I should start making merchandise, and one of the things I need to make is a shirt that says continuity, schmontinuity, and I'll probably do that. So there's continuity, schmontinuity, but John, winning cures everything. By nature, I win because I'm John Campea, and bring on the filthy are the ones that I had most people responding to me saying that they want shirts or coffee mugs or whatever. I'll see what I can do about that. But I know, look, I do think they'll reboot it. And I think they'll go younger. I think they'll go younger. I'm still totally, I have no idea how they're going to explain that, though. They have a lot of narrative decisions to make about how they explain how there's been no references to mutations or mutants in this world, and all of a sudden there's a world full of mutants. They're going to have to come up with something. And maybe they can. I'm just saying, I'm a little bit nervous about it, to be honest. All right. Eric the Red 06 writes, you were asked about Marvel making horror movies. Don't they own the rights to Ghost Rider and Blade now? I would love to see a horror movie in the MCU. Yeah, I mean, Blade, the first Blade was kind of a horror movie, I guess. The second one, to me, was more of a fun action film. Certainly had horror elements in it, but more of a fun action film than really a horror movie. I think you can make an argument that the first Blade was more horror than the second one, even though you had these ghastly Guillermo del Toro kind of monsters in it, absolutely. Ghost Rider is in there. Unfortunately, Ghost Rider is currently in their Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. stuff, and I don't see them bringing that character the way he is into their movie universe. Unless they reboot it, then you really are separating Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. from the cinematic universe, but that does pose a problem. We'll just really have to see. When Bob Iger said, I think there's room for R-rated stuff as long as we let the audience know what they're in for. We'll have to see how serious he was about that. We'll have to see how serious he was. Like, I believe him when he says that we're going to get an R-rated Deadpool in the MCU. Okay, that's great. But how R-rated, Bob, are you going to let it be? Like, you'll let him drop some F-bombs, okay. But the big litmus test for me is, would Disney allow... Okay, guy, I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to be explicit about it. But you know the scene I'm talking about in Deadpool, when they're going through the montage of their relationship, and they get to Happy International Women's Day. And you know what she's doing to him in that. Like, would Disney have let that happen in a Disney Marvel Deadpool movie? I know, Bob, you're saying you're going to let it be R as long as we let the audience know it's R. Would you have let them do that? Because I have my doubts that you would have let them do that. And to me, that was one of the funniest scenes in the movie. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how legitimate he is. I do know that Kevin Feige is very, very protective of the tone of the MCU. He's very protective of it. And I'm sure Bob will let Kevin do whatever he wants. The question will be, what does Kevin want to do with the MCU? How does Kevin want to unbalance the MCU? How far would Feige be willing to go to do that? And I don't know. Maybe characters like Ghost Rider and Blade find a home on Disney's streaming network as streaming series or as streaming feature films apart from the MCU. That's totally possible as well. The interesting thing about this Fox Disney deal is that it opens up a world of possibilities. There are a lot of different possibilities here that they could get into. All right, next one comes to us from Kelob Lawrence, who writes, a Star Wars fan page I follow on Facebook has been doing nothing but complaining about Last Jedi, posted videos edited to make it look like Mark Hamill hated the movie. I can tell you Mark Hamill loves the movie because I've been with him and hearing him say he loves the movie. So I can tell you Mark Hamill loves the movie. There's a lot of things going around about when he first saw the script. He's like, this is very different from what he was expecting, absolutely. But he got on board with it. And by the end of it, he absolutely loved the movie. I mean, he was at the premiere. We were there standing around. Ann and I happened to be standing there with him. It was just me and Ann, one or two other people, Mark Hamill, and why am I forgetting the name of the actor? Adam Driver. And Adam Driver were standing. So Mark and Adam are standing there talking. Me and Ann are standing right beside them, waiting for our limo to pick us up. And Mark was just going on about how much he loved the film. And how much he, this, that, and the other thing. So I can tell you Mark Hamill loves it. But look, if you love a film, that's great. But just because you love a film or I love a film does not mean that other people should not be allowed to not love a film. And if there are people out there and pages out there saying loudly that they don't like the film, there is nothing wrong with that. That's what the beauty of movies, man, is that you can love a movie and someone else can hate it, or you can hate a movie and I could love it. That's the beautiful thing about films, is that it's all subjective. And that means if you understand and you grasp the meaning of film being subjective, then not only do you have to be open to the fact that other people have different opinions, you got to celebrate that other people have different opinions. I mean, that's the reality of it. There are people who dislike Star Wars The Last Jedi, and there's nothing wrong with that. And that's cool. So I have no problem with that. Like, I do get, like, there was a discussion I had with one of our regular viewers in our chat today. And one of the regular viewers in our chat today, all he's been doing for days now is coming into our chat with one goal in mind. Just constantly post in the chat as much as he can to try to convince people not to like The Last Jedi. To the point that I finally said a mistake. He said, okay, look, dude, you've made your point. You've made your point of view completely clear. But can you talk about something else? Because all you've done for days is come into this chat trying to convince other people not to like it. Even when people try to change the topic and talk about other things as well, you keep trying to drag it back to this. Can you please stop? And that became an issue. And like I said, it's one of the regular viewers. And finally, I had to just block him out of the chat because it was just becoming derailing. That's different. But just because we like a movie, let's not pretend that other people don't like the movie, nor should we try to make it as if other people shouldn't dislike the movie. Movies are subjective. That means they're going to hit you in a different way than it hits me, in a different way that's going to hit the next guy, in a different way that's going to hit the next girl. And that's the beauty of movies, man. That's the beauty of movies. Let's embrace it. All right, let's move on here. The next one also comes to us from Caleb Lords, who writes, what happened to the Supernatural after show? Nobody watched it. Well, not nobody, but I tried. A lot of people asked me to try doing a Supernatural after show. So I launched it. Not a lot of people watched it. So I thought, you know what? If not a lot of people are going to watch it, then I should probably spend what limited time I have on the shows that people are watching. My shows that people are watching, I should say, as opposed to that. So I stopped doing it. That's why. Which breaks my heart, because I love Supernatural. You guys know it's like my favorite show. So, it broke my heart not to do a Supernatural after show, but just there weren't enough people that were interested in watching me talk about it. So I moved on. You try things, some things work, some things fail, and then you move on. That's the way life works. I can't think of a good username, writes, in the special George Lucas editions, what changes worked? You know what? The one big thing that worked for me in the special editions of the Star Wars movies, and not a lot about the special editions worked for me, but there are a few things. And one of the things that really stands out to me that worked well was the Bespin landscape. Like, as the Falcon is approaching Bespin, they updated everything. And even like little scenes when Leia's standing at the window in Bespin and having other things going on inside, it made it feel like a city that was alive. Whereas in the original version of The Empire Strikes Back, Bespin feels a little stagnant and like a dead ghost town a little bit, right? But in the special edition, it felt like a city that was alive. And to me, that's probably the best thing. There were other couple of positive things as well in the special editions, a lot of really bad things. But the big thing that stands out to me that was a positive addition was Bespin itself. And just the fact that those few changes they made gave the city life. And I really appreciated that about it. Good question, man. Thanks for bringing that up. Amy Singh writes, I always find it funny when some DC fan says that Marvel is for kids and DC is for adults, and yet Marvel movies are more watched and universally liked. Yeah, I reject that notion that DC is for adults. Really? A dude flying around in Superman spandex thing with a wavy cape is for adults? It's for the kid in all of us. I remember Henry Cavill said that once, that these movies are for the kid in all of us. And I think he nails it when he says that. That applies to Marvel movies, that applies to DC movies. And that's why I love them all. They are for the kid in all of us. Let's stop pretending that, Wonder Woman was for adults. Let's stop pretending that Winter Soldier was for adults. No, you can have more mature themes, you can have whatever themes, but these movies are for the kid in all of us. That's what these movies are for. And Justice League does it, that's why it worked for me. Avengers does it, that's why it works for me. And that's the real truth of it. I just really hate, this is what I hate. Remember I was just talking about how all film is subjective, you got to embrace it. Just because you dislike something, somebody else might like it, and vice versa, and blah, blah, blah. What I hate is when people make excuses for other people not liking something. Oh, more people like Disney than my DC? Well, that's just because they like kid films. Okay, so clearly you're weak-minded. Because when you need to make up excuses for other people having a different opinion than you, that's weak-mindedness. That's weak-mindedness. A strong mind goes, well, more people like Marvel films than DC, but that doesn't change my opinion because I am firm enough and secure enough in my opinion that I like these films more. That's what a strong mind does. And goes, that's cool if you dislike them. Like, I love Star Wars. All my life I've loved Star Wars. But guess what? All my life when people come to say, I don't like Star Wars, it's like, oh, I think you're a little bit crazy for that, but hey, that's cool. You don't like it? That's cool. I mean, that's what the way it's got to be. Let's not make excuses for why people like something or why people don't. Let's just accept that, hey, they didn't like it because they didn't like it. That's cool. Just like I don't like some things just because I don't like them. We don't need to make up excuses for why other people have different opinions than us. That's a sure hallmark sign of weak-mindedness. Let's see. Next one comes to us from Ben Rayner. And Ben Rayner writes, is Disney still planning on doing a live-action Peter Pan? I hope they do. I love the mythos. I'm honestly not sure. Because we just recently had a live-action Peter Pan, and it did not do so well. Either with the critics or with the box office, or with the audience. And it had Hugh Jackman in it, for heaven's sakes, and that thing kind of crashed and burned. I don't know if anybody's lining up to do another one anytime soon. If I hear anything about it, Ben, I will absolutely talk about it, but I have not heard anything on that front for now. Thanks a lot for bringing that up, though. Thomas Mays just sends in a super chat for sending in. Thank you so much, Thomas. C. Say sends in, did you find The Last Jedi less adventurous than The Force Awakens? Yes, I did. I think it does a number of things, and I'll get more into this in the spoiler review. I think The Last Jedi does a number of things better than The Force Awakens does. I actually like The Last Jedi more than The Force Awakens. But that, what you're saying, yeah, I think there are also a couple things that I think The Force Awakens does better than The Last Jedi. And just an overall sense of adventure, yes. Yes, I will say that I think The Force Awakens had more of an overall sense of adventure to the movie than The Last Jedi did. So I'll agree with you on that. Thomas Mays writes, they say every movie is written 3 times, in the screenplay, in the direction, and in the edit. It's very true, as a matter of fact. On Reddit, is a new edit suggestion that The Last Jedi that fixes almost all my problems. Is this just armchair quarterbacking? Yes, it's just armchair quarterbacking. But armchair quarterbacking is what we do. Is it just armchair quarterbacking? Yes, it is. But you say that like it's a bad thing, man. That's what we do. There's a reason it's called armchair quarterbacking, because big football fans like to dissect it the next day and say what they would have done and blah, 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 blah. But that just engages us more in the sport. Us as film fans, totally it's just armchair quarterbacking. Absolutely it's armchair quarterbacking, but it's what we do. That makes it fun. It's just another level of us engaging with the stuff that we love, which is the movies. So you are absolutely right. A movie can be totally changed in the edit. Just like a script can be totally changed in the direction. But a movie really comes to life in the edit. That's where the movie comes to life. You got to get all the good raw materials for it in the direction, and you got to start with a good foundation with a script, but then it's all brought together and brought to life in the edit, for sure. And there's different things you can do with the edit. We've seen a lot of different fan edits of Batman vs. Superman that have improved the film. We've seen the Phantom edit that improved the Star Wars prequels. We've seen a lot of different things like that. And it is just absolutely meaningless armchair quarterbacking. Absolutely. But there's nothing wrong with that because it's fun, because it's what we do as fans. And I think it's a great thing we do as fans. To be honest, that's just my opinion anyway. Thanks a lot for the question, Thomas. Tracy E. And I lost Tracy E. Where did Tracy E go? Tracy E goes, says, love your show. I watch you every day. Thank you so much, Tracy. So do I. Join you in, John. Sorry, you misspelled. By the way, a lot of people misspell my name. My name is John, the one true way to spell John. I'm just kidding, but that is the way you spell my name, John. John, in your opinion, who is or was the greatest actress? Who is the best actress right now is no questions asked. It's Meryl Streep. There is no one who comes close to being as decorated as she is, as diverse, with as wide of a range, and can do anything. You even put her in a musical. That woman learned to play guitar so she could do her own musical scenes in that music movie she did where she was a rocker in a band like 2 years ago that Diablo Cody wrote. And I'm forgetting the name of the movie off the top of my head. But that's the type of actress and performer that Meryl Streep is. She is the street monster. She's it. It starts and ends with her. So that's what I'll say for that. Thank you so much for the question, Tracy, and thank you for watching. Okay, only got time for a couple of more. If I don't get to all these questions that came in, guys, I will do a supplemental video a little bit later today that answers all the Super Chat questions that came in that I did not get a chance to answer. But I will answer as many as I can here right now. Giaxi Z writes, Feige said Loki will be an ally to Thanos at Comic-Con XP. Chances that Loki will secretly help the Avengers in Infinity War based on his character development in Thor 3. I think he will secretly be an ally to the Avengers based on his character development through the whole franchise. See, that's the thing. That is one of the reasons I have loved the Loki character. Is the Loki character is a truly confused, multiply layered character filled with a lot of anger and bitterness, but at his heart loves his family. I mean, that's been even if you go back to Thor 1, one of the things I love so much about Thor 1 is the Loki character. Because at the end of the day, all he really wanted was to gain the approval of his father. When you really break it down, that's what the whole Loki arc was about. He wanted the approval and the blessing, if you will, the acknowledgement of his father. And finding out that he was actually adopted from a different race only increased that need in him to get that approval, that acknowledgement from his father. And that became the underlying basis for everything we know about the Loki character. And I love the way they've used him throughout, and I love the way they've had that whole theme go on throughout as well. I just love it. I love what they do with Loki. So yes, I do agree that's what they're going to use him for in this. Who knows? Could be wrong, but that's what the direction I think they're going to go with. Life of Logan writes, will you be ranking your favorite Star Wars movies in your spoiler review? Well, I can rank them right now. My favorite is Return of the Jedi, Empire Strikes Back, New Hope, The Last Jedi, Force Awakens, Rogue One, then Revenge of the Sith, Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones. That's how I rank them myself. And every once in a while, Rogue One and The Force Awakens flip positions for me, depending on what I've seen last, because I really do like both of those movies. And every once in a while, they flop positions. And maybe The Last Jedi might flop with one of those as well a little bit later. For now, though, The Last Jedi holds the number 4 spot for me. Let's see. KW Garrett writes, sorry, not a movie query. Los Angeles now has 2 NFL football teams. Have you attended any of their games yet? Know you love the Patriots, but I don't hold it against you. I have not been to any games yet. I'm kind of waiting until they build the new stadium, and then I'll go. But I am definitely going. Actually, Ann and I have been talking about maybe getting seasons tickets to one of the 2 teams. And I will go, but I have not gone to any of their games yet. The Batfleck writes, do you have any Rey or Kylo Ren Funko Pops? I do. I have both. Neither of them are on the shelf back here. I've got them packed in a box right now. Because when I moved out of my old office, I just had, like, my walls were covered with Funko Pops. So I had to pack most of them in boxes. I just cracked a couple out to put on my shelf back here. But most of them are still in boxes in my mother-in-law's garage. So I still got to get those out and unpack them. But yep, I have both of those. Tony Bush writes, with no Man of Steel 2, do you think Cavill will renew? Honestly, right now, I have no idea what DC's doing or what they're going to do. The fact that they're talking about this new lineup of films and none of them include Man of Steel 2, first of all, you should be rebooting. Second, if you're not going to be reboot, where the hell is Man of Steel 2? So I don't know. I'm just, the way they are mishandling that, it just staggers me every time. Every time, man. Defron Dominic writes, other than a top 10 movies of the year list, will you be doing one for TV shows as well? There's been a bunch of great original content this year. Probably not, because I don't watch enough TV. I don't have the time to sit around and watch a lot of TV. I watch just a select number of shows. Mostly I watch the shows just to fill time in between me doing things for work. But I don't watch enough shows to really put together a proper list like that. All right, Justin Walker writes in, what went wrong with the outcome of some critics and viewers that this movie, The Last Jedi, got negative backlash? Well, again, I think the negative backlash is being overplayed, because when you look at the 5 major metrics, including critic metrics and fan metrics, Cinema Score as a fan metric gave it an A. The IMDb audience score gave it an 81%. Metacritic gave it an 86%. Rotten Tomatoes critic rating gave it a 93%. Then there's one, which is the Rotten Tomatoes audience rating. I've always said that the Rotten Tomatoes audience rating and the IMDb audience rating, which gave it a positive audience reaction, I think both of those have to be thrown out, because they allow people to vote multiple times and allow people to vote who haven't even seen the movie. So you can't take it, you can't even look at those numbers, other than in fun. The only legitimate audience score rating is Cinema Score, because Cinema Score actually surveys people as they come out of the theaters, gives them a full survey. They verify they only vote once, and they verify that people actually saw the movie. So that's the one to me. But look, there are things, I'll get into it in my spoiler review at 12 o'clock. There are things about The Last Jedi that I do not like. My very first tweet that I sent out after I came out of The Last Jedi for the first time was, I really like the movie, but I did not like Finn and Rose's storyline whatsoever, and I did not like Benicio del Toro. I love just about everything else. So there are things about this movie not to like. There are. For some people, those parts play bigger roles for them. For some people, play smaller. But, I mean, you're going to get that with any movie at all. Justin Walker also sends in, since the DCEU is at a standstill with the stumbling numbers of Justice League, what is the first step for Warner Brothers to fix the problem? What is your advice? Look, I've said this thing. I think there's 2 things they need to do. Well, one of 2 things. Number 1, my first piece of advice is reboot this thing. You've got the greatest comic book characters in the world. Reboot with a stronger base. That's important. Then number 2 is, if you're not going to reboot, kind of reestablish everything with a new Batman universe done by Matt Reeves. So those are things, and it doesn't look like they're going to do either of those. So honestly, I cannot stress enough, what they need to do is reboot. They need to reboot. They need to reboot. They need to reboot. They need to reboot. When everything your cinematic universe has led up to Justice League, and then that movie comes out and becomes the lowest viewed movie out of all your movies, it's time to reboot. Like, look, if Avengers Infinity War comes out and it becomes the lowest box office of all the Marvel movies, it's time to reboot, because that's a sign that everybody's given up on the MCU. That's not going to happen, but if it did, I think it would be time for the MCU to reboot. Justice League with Batman and Superman and Wonder Woman and Aquaman and The Flash, that comes out and it's the lowest of all your movies? Come on. Take the hint. Take the hint. It's time to reboot. Anyway, that's just my opinion. Some of you guys have different opinions, and they're totally valid. I Got a Name writes, I'm still on the fence about MoviePass and Cinemia. Which are you liking more? Cinemia and MoviePass are 2 very different things, and I encourage you to get both. Because whereas MoviePass is concerned, I can go to a movie and buy 1 ticket the day of the movie. That's great. There's some obviously drawbacks with that, but that's great. Cinemia is more expensive, but I can buy tickets online in advance. You can't do that with MoviePass. And I can buy 2 tickets to a movie so I can bring my wife or a buddy with me. Can't do that with MoviePass. So they each have their pros and their cons. I'll probably, you know what? I'm going to do a video of comparing MoviePass versus Cinemia. Which one is right for you? You just gave me a great idea. I Got a Name. Thank you for that. I'll go into more detail with that video. Okay, last couple of questions. I'm just going to fly through these here really quick. This one comes to us from Charles Harkins, who writes, Are your best movies and favorite movies the same list? They differ slightly, because I think there is a difference between what is your favorite and what do you acknowledge as the best. Like, my favorite hockey player of all time is not necessarily the best hockey player of all time. Like, my favorite hockey player of all time is Mario Lemieux. My second favorite hockey player of all time is Mike Bossy. But the greatest hockey player of all time, there's no denying, is Wayne Gretzky. Wayne, the great one, is the greatest, probably the greatest professional athlete of all time. Nobody has ever dominated their sport the way Wayne Gretzky dominated his. When you look at it statistically, they're miles apart. Like, Wayne Gretzky was so far ahead of everybody, so there is a difference between what my favorite is and who I acknowledge as the best. And I think sometimes, for the most part, your favorites and what you think are the best line up most of the time, but there are some minor differences, absolutely. Gerardo Riaz writes, finally, you can review Star Wars. I can guess you'll be here all day. Super chat, hell, good luck. Yeah, that's good. Don't forget, guys, the spoiler open review for Star Wars The Last Jedi is at noon Pacific Standard Time today. Stig 100-900 writes, working 7 days, not healthy. Why not take 1 day off? Because I love doing what I do. You're right. I have not taken 1 day off in 6 months. I have done videos every day for the past 6 months straight. Because I love what I do, and I love you guys, and I love interacting with you guys. But maybe I will look at maybe scheduling a day off for myself now and again. Christmas is coming up. I might have to take a day or two off, but I am bringing a lot of my gear with me to Canada when I go home for Christmas, and I'm still going to be doing shows from Canada over Christmas. But you're right, I should be taking a day off, and maybe I'll get around to it. All right, Shira. By the way, guys, please do not send in any more super chats. We're out of time here. I'm already gone overtime. And my camera went off because I've gone so much overtime. So let me bring on my backup camera here. We'll finish off these super chats with Shriyash Shirvastav, who writes, Campea, you know dancing? Show me some moves. I kid you not. I used to be a professional breakdancer. I wish I was kidding. When I say professional breakdancer, I mean, I was in school. Like, this is back when I was in grade 8, grade 9. And I was actually part of a crew that would get paid to go places and dance. And I made a little bit of money being a breakdancer. I will never show you videos of that because I looked stupid. Mega Movies writes, top 3 Christmas movies in honor of the season. You know me, Mega Movies, I do not take top 3, top 5, top 10 questions because at least not on the spur of the moment. You can email in those questions if you want, but these are questions that I'd have to sit down and actually think about for a little while. I mean, obviously I mentioned the other day, It's a Wonderful Life is going to be up there, but again, where would it fit? What other movies would be there? I'd have to sit down and think about that for a little bit, but thank you for sending in the question. Ben Rayner writes in, I'm in the minority. I like Anakin in Return of the Jedi. Makes sense to me. I'm not sure what you mean by that. There is no young Anakin in Return of the Jedi. Do you mean as the Force ghost at the end when they have the younger Anakin show up? If that's what we're referring to, it actually makes sense to me because in a way, manner of speaking, that's when Anakin died and Darth Vader was born. So I was actually okay with Anakin, like the Hayden Christensen Anakin showing up as the Force Ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi, because to me that kind of made sense in that way. Sam Demmer writes, what did you think about... Oh, geez, dude, that's a spoiler, so I'm going to skip over that. And I'm going to take this off the screen so I can answer the last 2 questions. Justin Walker writes, Arrow on CW has dwindling ratings. What can the producers do in order to improve the ratings to make it better? Dude, I've been going on about that for years. I mean, focus more on Arrow. Just focus more on the Green Arrow. Get rid of all these ridiculous sidekick characters, please. Arrow was at its best when it was the Trinity. When it was Diggle, Oliver, and Felicity. When the show was just them, that show was firing on all cylinders. Then everybody in their city can be a superhero. You have no background athletically, no problem. Put on a mask. You're a superhero now, and you can be a superhero, and you can be a superhero, and everybody's a superhero. That's when they lost their way to me. And then they constantly have Oliver going back and forth between I do kill, I don't kill, I do kill, I don't kill. Oliver kills. Let him kill. He was at his best when he killed. Anyway, so there's a few things they could do, but which is really unfortunate because I believe Stephen Amell is a freaking superstar. I really believe Stephen Amell is a superstar. I wish they would just let him do his show. Koet says in the super chat, thank you. And the last one in here is from Marcus Legenberg, who writes, hey, I love the show. Thank you so much, Marcus. I read that Star Wars Last Jedi had lower audience scores than Justice League. Thoughts? Well, actually, that's not true. It has the one real audience score, which is Cinema Score. It has a higher audience, significantly higher audience score than Justice League did. The one rating system where people can vote who haven't seen the movie and can vote multiple times, which is the Rotten Tomatoes audience rating system, not the real Rotten Tomatoes system is the critic rating. Then they have this audience rating thing. On that, yes, that's true. But again, I discount the IMDb audience rating. Even though it's high for Star Wars The Last Jedi, I discount it. I discount the Rotten Tomatoes audience rating. The only real audience rating is the Cinema Score, because that's the only one that verifies that the people voting actually saw the movie and only vote once. Therefore, it's an untainted survey, if you will. So anyway, that's just my opinion on that. Okay, guys, that will do it for me for today's installment of the John Campea Show here on this Sunday. Got to go watch some football now, but don't forget, guys, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time is when we are doing, I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for this, our Star Wars The Last Jedi spoiler review, open discussion. I'll be taking your thoughts and comments as well throughout the show. Make sure you join us for that. And then a little bit later today, probably around 4 o'clock, is a special video editorial on 3 reasons why Star Wars The Last Jedi will take a 60% or larger drop in week 2 at the box office. So, and you know me, I love the movie, but I'm going to call it as I see it. Come back for that a little bit later today. That will do it for me, guys. Hey, listen, if you are not yet a subscriber to this YouTube channel, we got over 100,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for getting us there way faster than I thought we would. But we got room for a lot more. Click the subscribe button, become a subscriber. Make sure you follow me on social media, simply at John Campea. Click the thumbs up button, leave a thought or topic in the discussion section below. But remember, guys, when we're discussing and debating and having different points of view, remember, we're all film fans together. We're all ultimately on the same team. So let's debate our different points of views, but let's remember to treat the other person like what they are. Somebody who's on the same team as us, a fellow film fan. All right, guys, that will do it for me for this installment of the John Campea Show. Thanks so much for joining me. My name's John Campea, and until the spoiler review, bye-bye.